Breaking news, Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden has made his choice. NBC News has confirmed that Biden has picked California Senator Kamala Harris to be his running mate.
Her? On the Republican team. Not only did they select a guy as their candidate who probably forgets he's running for president, but they made his VP someone who lost all chances of helping him become one. I mean, they selected a running mate who believes that he sexually assaulted a woman.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
But that's not even the biggest problem. Kamala's biggest problem is the amount of skeletons Tulsi exposed in Kamala's closet could overflow a graveyard. Around 127,000 skeletons, in fact.
There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana.
Oh, damn!
She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so.
Damn!
She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California.
Damn!
Now, for someone who parades themselves around as a racial justice candidate, this is bad. What's more, she has yet to show she has an excuse for this. Here's Anderson Cooper offering her a path to redemption, and Kamala effectively responds with, yeah, but I'm more popular.
Some of the toughest critique or attacks at you came from Tulsi Gabbard.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
And how do you think it went?
Well, I mean, listen, this is going to sound immodest, but I'm obviously a top-tier candidate, and so I did expect that I would be on the stage and take hits tonight because there are a lot of people that are trying to make the stage for the next debate, especially when people are at 0 or 1% or whatever she might be at.
At this point, Kamala was done. She had virtually no support from the black community. She is the least woke candidate by actions alone, and actions are what count. In fact, Kamala's baggage is so heavy that Democrats reportedly waged a quiet war behind the scenes to stop her from being nominated. What's more, she's far from moderate, which makes it even harder for Democrats not to the left of Marx to vote for her, and there are a lot of them out there. The only defense they have for her is to tell everyone criticizing her that they're sexist, which, well, we know how that works out.
Hello, darkness, my...
But on top of all of this, Kamala was a bad choice because of the reason she was even an option in the first place. Democrats didn't care if she was qualified, competent, or a good leader. They chose her based off of the most shallow reasons possible: her sex and her skin color. Neither of these is going to make a difference in dealing with disasters or foreign affairs. Being black or a woman doesn't help you lead better. That's a skill you develop. You don't get it from melanin levels. Democrats are just using Kamala's descriptors as qualifiers to pat themselves on the back. They're not concerned about you or this country. If Democrats truly believed in Kamala Harris's leadership, they wouldn't have tossed her out of the primary so early. She's just an object to them, a means to an end.
You are a
Record on race.
I am proud of the work we did, reforming a criminal justice system and cleaning up the consequences of the bills that you passed when you were in the United States Senate for decades.
The irony of Biden's decision to select Harris, particularly in the wake of widespread protests against police misconduct and racial injustice, is that she has her own troubling record on criminal justice issues, which also came up on the debate stage.
She had a police department when she was there that, in fact, was abusing people's rights.
The bottom line is, Senator Harris, when you were in a position to make a difference and an impact in these people's lives, you did not. And worse yet, in the case of those who were on death row, innocent people, you actually blocked evidence from being revealed that would have freed them until you were forced to do so. There is no excuse for that.
I want Joe Biden to win. It is about everything about criminal justice reform and what we're trying to do in terms of reforming policing.
Like Biden, Harris deserves credit for endorsing vital reforms, even at this stage in her career. But it's worth setting the record straight about her priorities over the course of her 16 years in public life, before criminal justice reform became front and center for the Democratic Party.
I am proud of that work, of being in the position to use the power that I had to reform a system that is badly in need of reform.
Harris's record is that of a 1980s-style drug warrior, a defender of dirty prosecutors, and a political opportunist who has made life more dangerous for sex workers. Harris's political rise has been propelled by a years-long, high-profile campaign against alleged sex traffickers. What she's actually done is throw women in jail for having consensual sex, while trampling on the rule of law to advance her own political ambitions. Ignoring the pleas of sex workers and human rights advocates for over a decade, She's fought against campaigns to decriminalize consensual adult prostitution in California. As Attorney General, she created a statewide program to get truckers to report suspected sex workers to police. These policies didn't stop traffickers, but they did land plenty of sex workers behind bars.
One of the greatest offenders is Backpage.com.
Harris fought to destroy Backpage.com, a classified site that sex workers use to find and screen their clients, even though she publicly admitted that the site's founders, Michael Lacey and James Larkin, were protected from prosecution under federal free speech laws.
But tonight, a groundbreaking arrest.
But a month before Election Day in her Senate race, Harris went ahead and had them arrested anyway, parading them before the cameras on pimping charges, which were then promptly dismissed by a judge. When Harris got to Congress, she kept up her crusade, becoming a big proponent of the 2018 law known as Sesta Fasta.
One cannot cowardly sit behind a computer committing their crime. Quite the contrary.
The result was that many sex workers had no choice but to return to the streets, where soliciting clients is considerably more dangerous.
It's because you don't know who's going to pick you up.
There's more pimps and there's more guys out here.
Meanwhile, Harris declined to intervene in a real underage sex trafficking scandal that involved dozens of police and other local authorities in the Bay Area.
America has a deep and dark history of people using the power of the prosecutor as an instrument of injustice. I knew this history well, of innocent men framed, of prosecutors hiding information that would exonerate defendants.
Yes, and during her time as California's top cop, Harris contributed to that history repeatedly by going to bat on behalf of dirty prosecutors. Her office appealed the dismissal of a case in which a prosecutor had fabricated a confession to secure a conviction and fought an appeal in a case where a prosecutor had lied to the jury during trial. In 2015, Harris tried to stop the removal of the Orange County District Attorney's Office from a murder trial after it repeatedly failed to turn over evidence to the defense. Her office even tried to keep a man in jail who had been wrongfully incarcerated for 13 years after a judge ruled that he had proven himself innocent just because the man hadn't delivered that proof quite fast enough. And as San Francisco DA, Harris hid known misconduct by a crime lab technician who admitted to deliberately tainting evidence.
Did prosecutors working under you know about the concerns about that lab?
The prosecutors
which is what the judge alleged.
Did not know about it, at least said they did not know about it.
The debacle has since led to the dismissal of hundreds of criminal cases.
Something else it's past time we get done is dismantling the failed war on drugs, starting with legalizing marijuana.
Your opponent, Ron Gold, has said that he is for the legalization of marijuana recreationally. Your thoughts on that?
That he is entitled to his opinion.
Harris is a former drug warrior who is now refashioning herself as pro-legalization. That's a positive shift, but not a reason to rewrite the past or ignore the patterns it reveals in her judgment. For years after the cultural tide had turned in favor of criminal justice reforms, Harris continued to support lock-em-up policies that disproportionately hurt minorities. As California Attorney General, Harris opposed marijuana legalization as late as 2014, promoted civil asset forfeiture without a conviction as a way to fight drug rings, and sought to more aggressively police prescription drug use. In her 2019 book, The Truths We Hold, An American Journey, Harris reveals that her drug warrior mentality hasn't changed.
We also need to reinstate the DEA's authority to go after the major pharmaceutical manufacturers and distributors, and we need to invest resources in law enforcement efforts to cut off the supply of fentanyl from China. Let's believe in a more perfect union without mass incarceration of African American men. We put more people in prison than any country on earth for no good reason.
Yes, we do. And once these people were in prison, Harris saw to it that they'd have a hell of a time getting out.
I absolutely believe there should be severe and serious consequence for violent crime, which is why I've prosecuted those cases, and will always seek the highest sentence. As a prosecutor and law enforcement, I have a huge stick. So I decided I was going to start prosecuting parents for truancy.
Before her recent about-face, Harris chose not to endorse proposed sentencing reforms on the California ballot in 2012 and 2014, and she defended the constitutionality of cash bail until 2016. Harris's office also fought an order to reduce California's prison population after the Supreme Court determined the conditions amounted to cruel and unusual punishment. Although she later claimed to be shocked by what they had done, Harris's attorneys argued that nonviolent offenders should stay behind bars because the state needed the cheap labor they provide.
We are part of a longer story, and we are responsible for how our chapter gets written.
As she tries to convince voters to put her a heartbeat away from the presidency, Kamala Harris is trying to rewrite her last chapter. But her record is yet another reminder of the terrible choice voters face in the 2020 election.
I think you can judge people by when they are under fire, and it's not about some fancy opinion on a stage, but when they're in the position to actually make a decision, what do they do? I mean, listen, we did it, Joe. You're going to be the next president of the United States.